Hey there, Marvel fanatics! Let's point out the obvious. When discussing the Avengers, we often overlook their family trees. So today, let's take a deep dive into the realm of Captain America's ancestral heritage. Obviously, there is much more to Steve Rogers than his star-spangled shield and heroic acts. We will uncover the hidden gems, explore the lesser-known relatives, and possibly encounter a few surprises along the way. Moreover, we shall also delve into Steve's familial evolution across various alternative universes in both comics and the MCU. So, whether you're a fervent Captain America enthusiast or merely an occasional observer, this intricate web of relationships is sure to captivate you. Prepare yourself, because you are about to delve into the enigmatic depths of Captain America's family lineage. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Stephen Rogers, ancestor. Let's take a little journey back in time to meet Captain Stephen Rogers from the American Revolutionary War. Now, even though some folks called him Captain America too, he's not the official Captain America we all know and love. That title was cooked up by the modern US government during World War II. Cap's ancestor was in the game way before the USA was even a thing. This old-school Captain Rogers was rocking a regular iron shield, nothing like Cap's vibranium one. Unfortunately, his story doesn't end with a happily ever after. He met his end in 1783 during one of the last battles of the Revolutionary War when a cannonball decided to crash the party. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some folks back in the day speculated that Revolutionary Rogers might have owned slaves, which was pretty standard back then. But here's the plot twist. There's no historical record to back that up, so we'll leave that debate for the history buffs. In more recent times, our modern-day Captain America had dreams about his ancestors while he was trying to foil a mad bomb plot to destroy the good old USA. Stephen Rogers' later ancestry is a bit of a mess, with the MCU providing no exact explanation for why his family would later leave for Ireland despite being such staunch supporters of the States. Joseph Rogers, father. So before we had our star-spangled hero, there was Joseph Rogers, Stephen Rogers' dad. Now, Joseph was a proper Irish lad, born and raised in the Emerald Isle. That's where he met and fell in love with Sarah Rogers, tying the knot and all that jazz. Now, during World War I, Joseph served in the 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry, and got himself a pretty significant war wound during the push for Soissons in France. Tough times, no doubt. After the war, he and Sarah packed their bags and headed to the good old USA, ending up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City. And here's where things went south. Life in the Big Apple wasn't all that peachy for the Rogers family. Joseph couldn't find a steady job, and that led him down a rocky road. He turned to the bottle, became an alcoholic, and started mistreating both Sarah and young Steve. It's a real tearjerker, folks. Tragically, Joseph's story ended in 1926 when he succumbed to the flu, leaving behind his 6-year-old son, Steve, to deal with a world of challenges. Sarah Rogers, mother. Let's meet the woman behind the legend, our very own Captain America's mom, Sarah Rogers. She hailed from Ireland and was raised in what seemed like a good old Christian household. That's when she crossed paths with Joseph Rogers, and the two decided to take a leap of faith and head to the land of dreams, the good old USA. In 1920, on the 4th of July, Sarah brought baby Steve into the world. Now, after Joseph passed away, life got really tough for Sarah and her little one. She had to put in double shifts at a garment factory and even took in laundry to make her ends meet. The woman was a real trooper until her tragic death a few years later. But Sarah's legacy goes beyond just being a mom. She instilled some essential life lessons in Steve. Her life was all about inner strength and perseverance, so she'd always tell Steve that a strong heart could take him further than any bulging biceps, and having a solid heart meant that he'd never give up. That's some real wisdom right there. Ian Zola, adopted son. Ian Zola, aka Nomad, was a very intriguing character. So, Ian was basically lab-grown by the mad scientist Arnim Zola over in Dimension Z. Why? Nobody knows for sure. Now, Captain America stumbled upon this test tube kid and rescued him, thinking he was a goner otherwise. But things got dicey when the locals, called the Frocks, thought Cap and Ian were Zola's henchmen. They nearly faced execution, but our boy Cap, being the legend that he is, managed to break free and save Ian despite taking a thump from the Frocks' leader. Fast forward 11 years, and there's a whole lot of brainwashing going on. Zola pulls Ian into the dark side, making him despise Cap and worship Zola's evil agenda. But Cap, with his unyielding determination, snaps Ian out of it. The kid sees the light, grabs Captain Zolandia's shield, and starts leading the Frocks against Zola's mutates. Legends start swirling about this guy, and they begin to call him Nomad. He then reappears on the scene, searching for his adopted father, Cap, to help thwart Zola's plans to invade the Earth from Dimension Z. He tracks Cap down, warns him about the impending doom, and together they tackle Zola and his pesky mutates. After that, Nomad teams up to help the new Captain America, Sam Wilson, staying true to his dad's legacy of serving up justice. Family of Captain America in alternate universes. Alright folks, we've taken a peek at Cap's family history in the main Marvel universe of Earth 616. But now, we're strapping in for a wild ride into the multiverse. We're going to dive into alternate universes where Cap's family tree might have some mind-bending twists and turns. It's like exploring a whole bunch of Cap family albums from different dimensions. And trust us, it's gonna be a blast! So buckle up and let's jump into these alternate realms where Captain America's family story takes on some unexpected flavors. Matthew Rogers, brother. Let's hop into a totally different Marvel universe, Earth 9997. Here, the Rogers family had a pretty tough time during the Great Depression. Joseph and Sarah Rogers were as broke as beggars, living in a run-down shack and just drowning in poverty. Now, their firstborn Matthew had it even rougher. He was sickly and needed crutches to get around, and sadly, he passed away at a young age. What exactly got him is a bit of a mystery, but here's the kicker. They had a second son, the one and only Steve, who'd grow up to be our beloved Captain America. Little Steve had no clue about his older brother Matthew, who had left this world before he even came into it. Matthew and his parents ended up in the realm of the dead, a place that looked a lot like the Depression-era New York. Fast forward to modern times, and Steve does something pretty epic. He takes on death, turns it into a paradise, and becomes a guardian angel for the folks in the realm of the dead. He tries to convince them that they're deceased so they can go to paradise. And guess what? Among the souls he's trying to help is his own family, and bam! Steve learns about his long-lost older brother, Matthew. We're left with a bit of a mystery whether he managed to convince the Rogers family to join him in paradise or not. Crazy, right? Gail Richards' fiancé. Let's dive into Earth 1610 of the Marvel Universe, with Cap's story having a little bit of a twist. Over here, we've got Gail Richards, who was once engaged to none other than Captain America. Back in the day, around 1942. They went their separate ways, with Cap promising to come back to Gail. Little did he know, there was a surprise in the making. Gail and Steve had a kiddo on the way. But hold on to your seats for this part. The US government did some shady stuff after Captain America's last mission and his supposed demise. They convinced Gail to give up her child, making it sound like it was for his safety. In reality, they trained the kid to be just like his old man. Fast forward to the early 21st century, and Gail gets hit with a major shocker. Cap's not only alive, but also looking all young and fresh thanks to some super serum. At first, she's not too keen on reuniting with him emotionally. Can you blame her? But eventually, they patch things up and rekindle their friendship. Red Skull, son. Let's step back to February 1945 on Earth 1610, where our man Steve Rogers and his girl Gail Richards shared one last memorable night. 4 months later, Gail's expecting a baby. But when Cap was declared dead in Iceland, the government thought it would be wise to keep their love child under wraps. So, in the spring of 1946, their son is born and whisked away to foster care on a military base, where they start training him to be a super soldier. This kid ends up more assertive and more tactically skilled than his old man. But here's the kicker. He's not showing any signs of wanting to escape. He's wisely biding his time. Fast forward to 1963 when the son is 17 and decides it's time to stage a rebellion. He goes on a killing spree, drives a kitchen knife into his own head, and becomes the notorious Red Skull. For decades, Red Skull was into some shady stuff, hanging out with dictators, smuggling drugs, and training terrorists. He finally joins AIM in 2010 and faces off with his old man, Captain America. In their showdown, Red Skull lets the cat out of the bag. He's Cap's son. Things get even crazier when Red Skull gets his hands on the Cosmic Cube and turns into a powerhouse. Cap almost stabs him to death, and Red Skull spills the beans about all he ever wanted was to turn back time and have a normal life with his dad before ultimately passing away. Natasha Stark, wife. Let's head on over to Earth 3490, where things in the Marvel Universe take an exciting turn. Instead of Tony Stark, we've got Natasha Stark, a woman who becomes the superhero known as Iron Woman. Now, what makes this universe stand out is that the whole Civil War business, it didn't happen here. Why? Well, because Natasha and good old Steve Rogers were head over heels in love. They even tied the knot. Their relationship acted as a significant buffer to each other's more aggressive tendencies, which made all the difference. With those two keeping things in check, they managed to get the superhero registration program off the ground and kicked off the 50-state initiative. Anna Marie, wife. Here's a cool twist on Rogue's story in the alternate Marvel reality of Earth 9811. It seems like she had a similar story to her mainstream's counterpart, with the whole Battle World gig during the Secret Wars and all that jazz. The only difference was that the heroes and villains put aside their disagreements and decided to play nice after all the chaos. They even started families. Talk about turning over a new leaf. Now, here's the kicker. Rogue began to have a bit of a personality clash with Carol Danvers. It's like they were fighting for control inside their shared body. But somewhere down the line, Rogue ties the knot with none other than Steve Rogers, Captain America. And the cool part? She can actually touch him because Carol's calling the shots. They become a family, and Rogue becomes a mom to a little superhero in the making, Sarah Rogers, who's got some of Carol's Captain Marvel superpowers. Sarah Rogers, daughter. Earth 9811 takes the cake for a wild twist on Captain America's legacy. Here we've got Sarah Rogers, the daughter of Cap himself and the X-Man Rogue. Now, in this crazy reality, they had a kid because Carol Danvers' spirit figured out how to work together with Rogue's powers. But that's not all. There's a new baddie on the block, Malefactor, Dr. Doom's son, who's got world-conquering ambitions. Sarah steps up to the plate, rallying her fellow young heroes to take this guy down. And here's the epic part. Sarah grabs a hold of Mjolnir, that enchanted hammer of Thor, during the showdown. You know what that means? She's deemed worthy to wield it. Now, these teen heroes are trying to figure out a way back home to Earth, but instead, they land on a different version of Earth overrun by Sentinels. Sarah refuses to give up, so clearly, she's all about following in their parents' heroic footsteps and bringing peace to this crazy new world, even if it means risking it all. Wanda Maximoff, girlfriend. Hold on to your hats, folks, because on Earth 22795, Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda, and Captain America decided to spice things up with a little affair. And guess what? That affair led to the whole Avengers Disassembled saga. Talk about relationship drama, right? Things escalated even further when the X-Men and some former Avengers confronted Scarlet Witch and her beloved Cap. But here's where the story goes off the rails. Rogue, the powerhouse, messed with Wanda's spell, and bam! Most of the heroes got wiped out of existence. It's a Marvel catastrophe. In the midst of all this chaos, Captain America himself was horrified by what went down. So he made a tough call and asked Wanda to zap them out of that reality too. And you know what? She did just that, sending them both into oblivion. Margaret Carter, wife. Okay guys, let's jump into Earth 58163, where Peggy Carter was a real badass during World War II. She fought alongside the French resistance and even met and fell head over heels for our very own Captain America. After the war, these two lovebirds tied the knot. But here's where things get complicated. Peggy joined the S.H.I.E.L.D. gang, while Steve decided to kick back a bit, and live a semi-regular life. But there's a little hiccup in paradise. Steve's pretty laid back when it comes to mutants, and that kind of irked Peggy. Fast forward to 1957, and nearly 12 years after wedded bliss, Peggy had her fill and packed up. Yeah, they got divorced. In the modern era, Peggy seems to have moved on to the afterlife and beyond. But she's still on Steve's mind. He's got his head in the past, thinking about his ex pretty darn often. Love and superheroes. It's never simple, is it? Ellie Rogers, daughter. Let's dive into Earth 85-826, where things are pretty intense in the Marvel Universe. We've got Ellie Rogers, the daughter of the legendary Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter. So Ellie crosses paths with Nomad and decides to take him to the underground resistance, where they've got big plans to take down Zola. Here's the deal. Things don't go as they're planned. The resistance gets wiped out, except for Ellie and Nomad, who make a daring escape. But here's the twist. Venom's pesky symbiote latches onto Ellie. It's like a ticking time bomb, waiting to turn her into a new Viper. With the resistance in shambles, Ellie's hope for a better world starts to fade. But Nomad gives her a pep talk, reminding her of her dad's spirit. So they decide to go head-to-head with Zola, who wants something from Nomad's armor to fix up his son. He even uses Steve Rogers' body to mess with them, but that just fires them up more. They put Zola in a serious pickle and trap him inside Steve's corpse. But while they're dealing with this, Ellie's symbiote starts to take over, causing her some real problems. She eventually fights it off and regains control. Nomad convinces her they've got nothing left to fight for anymore in this messed up world, so they decide to bounce. They escape to the Hydra Empire, but sadly, Ellie's extensive injuries ultimately cause her tragic death. Jessica Jones, wife. It's time to dive into Earth 523002, where Jessica Jones, rocking her superhero alter ego Jewel, gets an offer she can't refuse from S.H.I.E.L.D. They want her to be their link to the Avengers, and of course she accepts. So Jess joins the Avengers, which is pretty awesome for her. During a mission against the Squadron Supreme, she does the heroic thing and saves Captain America. That's where the sparks start flying. Love is in the air. After the Squadron Supreme gig, Jessica starts noticing that something's off with Scarlet Witch. She's acting all kinds of weird, and Jessica even thinks she hears voices in her room. So she spills the beans to Captain America. The team decides to confront Scarlet Witch, who admits she's losing it. Cap takes a moment to fill Jessica in on her situation, and then bam! They share a kiss. Love blossoms, and they decide to tie the knot. Natalia Romanova, wife. Here's a heart-wrenching version of Cap's life from Earth 555-326. Black Widow and Captain America, the iconic duo, had a son named James Rogers. Now, here's where things take a dark turn. Both Widow and Cap met their demise at the hands of the relentless Ultron. But it's not all doom and gloom. James got lucky and was rescued, finding himself in safe hands. James Rogers, son. On Earth 555-326, James Rogers, the son of Captain America and Black Widow, had a bit of an unusual upbringing. He and his adopted siblings were kept hidden away in an Arctic base, far from the hero life they'd heard about in stories. Now, he had a tough gig, constant training and all. But James got to a point where he was over it. He started slacking off, not seeing the point of all the training. Then things got interesting. James stumbled upon a secret entrance, and guess what he found? The Iron Avengers. James couldn't resist the idea that Iron Cap might have a piece of his dad's memories. So he tinkered around, accidentally activated them, and off they went to tackle Ultron. Now, here's where it gets bad. The Iron Avengers got zapped by Ultron, and the kids had to bolt for their lives. James decided to switch things up and went straight to Ultron's Citadel for a showdown. His first attempt was nearly a disaster, but he didn't give up. He snuck into Ultron's lair again and found a room filled with the remnants of the fallen Avengers, including Captain America's costume. Ultron decided James was a significant threat, just like his dad, and ordered his robot army to take him out. But James was a smart cookie. He activated a beacon to lure Ultron, leading to an epic showdown with the Iron Avengers. James even managed to get back the original Star Shield from Iron Cap, which was a game changer. When Ultron tried to blast James, he used the Star Shield to hold on for dear life. Then his team chucked Ultron's split body into space. James then set his sights on cleaning up the remaining mess and keeping Earth safe, much like his dad. Sharon Rogers, daughter. Let's take a trip to Earth 415, where Captain America's stories takes another different turn. In this alternate universe, Steve Rogers never gets frozen in ice at the end of World War II. Instead, he and Agent Peggy Carter team up as Allied resistance fighters and help secure a victory. They even celebrate their success with a private marriage ceremony. Talk about love in the midst of war! After their honeymoon, Peggy gets assigned to South Korea for some S.H.I.E.L.D. peacekeeping action. So Steve and Peggy move there, and not long after, they welcome their daughter, Sharon. Sharon's basically an alternate version of the Sharon Carter we know in other realities, who's either Peggy's sister, niece, and has a thing for Steve Rogers. Fast forward a few decades, and when her folks retire from the superhero gig, Sharon steps up to the plate. She's all about carrying on their legacy of peace and justice. She joins S.H.I.E.L.D. and even takes her dad's Captain America mantle. But that's not all. She gets a whole new makeover after a couple of years. New armor, new shield, new weapon. It's like a superhero glow-up. Talk about a family tradition of fighting for what's right. Marvelous verdict. So there you have it, folks, the wild and wonderful journey through Captain America's family tree across alternate universes. From kids born in secret bases to epic battles against the likes of Ultron, these family tales are like a roller coaster ride through the Marvel Universe. It's clear that the legacy of Captain America, whether it's Stephen Rogers, Peggy Carter, or his amazing kids, lives on in different forms even in alternate realities. And it's pretty cool to see how the Marvel Universe keeps reinventing itself while keeping the spirit of heroism alive. So whether it's an Iron Avengers showdown or a brand new Captain America donning the shield, the world of Marvel never ceases to amaze us. Let us know if you've got more Marvel family tales or alternate universe stories you'd like to explore. And of course, we'll be back with more epic Marvel adventures. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.